I'm thinking of treating everyone to some high-end steaks. Use this black card." Cheerfully, my mother-in-law pulled out the credit card she usually uses, sending a chill down my spine. Unaware, my mother-in-law, her face flushed with alcohol, turned back to the relatives and started talking again. "This is Eliza's money, so it's all free. What should I do? Did she steal it again?" I was thinking this, but I quickly realized a fact. The card my mother-in-law was holding was already invalid. Because, that card is expired, you know? Actually, I filed for divorce last week and am now single. At that moment, I felt the air around us freeze. My name is Eliza Hudson, 30 years old. While working full-time, I am living peaceful days with my husband, Aaron. Aaron and I met in college, when we were both students. Aaron was working at the same store where I started my part-time job, and he was assigned as my mentor because we were close in age. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Thank you. Aaron was a college student 2 years older than me. At first I was nervous, but he made an effort to interact with me in a way that didn't make me feel the age difference, making him easy to approach. "Are you okay? Have you gotten used to the job? How's college life? Are you enjoying it?" As conversations with Aaron became more comfortable, I started looking forward to what we would talk about next and began going to my part-time job with excitement. To be honest, I had special feelings for Aaron. It seems he felt the same way about me. This became clear 6 months after I started the part-time job when Aaron invited me out to eat. "I want to talk about various things. Is that okay?" "Of course." "Let's go." My heart leaped at the unexpected turn of events. After that, our relationship rapidly grew closer, and we started dating 2 months after our first meal together. Our relationship continued after we both became working adults, leading to marriage. When Aaron proposed, I wondered if it was really okay to be this happy. We decided not to have children and to live a leisurely life, just the two of us. Years have passed since then. I think I would have been happy even if we had children, but life with just Aaron is fulfilling. Even after several years of marriage, I still think I made the right choice marrying Aaron. I hoped this life would continue just as it is. However, a certain event suddenly brought a significant change to our peaceful life. My father-in-law passed away. It was incredibly hard, and I couldn't stop my tears. I met my in-laws several times a year, and each time, my father-in-law treated me warmly and cherished me as if I were his own daughter. It wasn't just my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was the same. Their warmth resonated deeply with me, especially since I seldom see my own parents. But I wasn't the only one grieving. Aaron, my mother-in-law, and other relatives were all shedding tears. Seeing the family, I was reminded of how much my father-in-law was respected. Following my father-in-law's death, Aaron and I started living with my mother-in-law. "It's been a while since we've lived in this house," Aaron muttered nostalgically. His words reached my mother-in-law, who responded, "Yes, I'm looking forward to living with you both." I thought that living with my mother-in-law would also be fun and peaceful. While excited about our new life, I devoted myself to unpacking. However, my expectations would soon be greatly betrayed. "Eliza, can't you even do something this simple?" "I'm sorry, I apologize. Housework is a wife's duty. You need to do a better job." Gradually, my mother-in-law began to treat me harshly. She assigned the responsibility of housework to me as the wife, and if something was not to her satisfaction, I was constantly nagged. "I have a job, so it's actually difficult to meet the level of housework she expects." "I'm sorry, but I have work too, so I'll do a thorough cleaning on the weekends." "I've always done it though." "That's because you were a stay-at-home wife." "Enough. That doesn't matter. A daughter-in-law should listen to her mother-in-law. Stop talking back. If you have time, you should dedicate it to housework." My mother-in-law's transformation was like she had become a completely different person. I couldn't understand the reason behind it, "Erin, I need to talk about your mother." "Mom." "What happened?" Feeling that suffering alone would not improve the situation, I decided to talk to Erin. "Recently, your mom's attitude has changed drastically. She's very different from before. Was she always like this?" "In fact, my mother-in-law's attitude towards me does not change even when Erin is around." He might have noticed something, or he might know something I don't. I really wanted to improve my relationship with her, so I was interested in hearing Erin's thoughts. "Do you know anything?" Despite this, Erin's response was unexpected. "No, I don't know. Dad's gone and it's just chaos now. There's nothing I can do." "So, there's nothing you can do?" I felt Erin had also changed, as if he had become a different person. The fact that he did not stop his mother's behavior was something I did not anticipate. If it were Erin from before, he surely would have protected me. Even though it's pointless to compare the present with the past, I couldn't help but feel unwilling to accept Erin's attitude. If you lost someone important, do you know how you might change? Can you definitively say you wouldn't become like Mom? Honestly, I can't say for certain. But just because I'm sad doesn't justify hurting others, and no matter the circumstances, there's no excuse for hurting people. You're just saying idealistic things. Mom isn't doing anything that terrible, is she? I was surprised by his unexpected objection. From his statement, it seemed that Erin didn't feel his mother's behavior was excessive. After all, it's normal for housework to be the wife's job. I can understand why she gets angry if you don't listen to her. I've been doing household chores all along. I felt it was unfair to leave everything to your mother. You say you can't clean in detail because you work, and that it was possible for her because she was a homemaker, but that's just an excuse. Though she was a homemaker, she actually had a very busy life. Yet you keep making irrational arguments. But it's unreasonable to expect the impossible, right? I don't want to lie about being able to do something I can't, so I'm honestly saying I can't and proposing alternatives. It almost felt like Erin was accusing me of being selfish. I didn't want to be simply brushed off, so I tried to argue back, but he only gave me a look of annoyance. Eventually, he said, "Enough. This conversation is pointless," and walked away from the discussion. Erin's words echoed in my mind over and over. "This is pointless." I felt like there was no one in the house who understood my feelings anymore. When faced with this reality, I developed a headache. Afterward, Erin and his mother began to direct cold remarks towards me. "I've always thought this, but the food you make is really terrible. I can't believe you'd serve this to anyone. Has it always been like this since we were alone together? Unbelievable. What kind of person are you really, Eliza?" My head hurts. I want to argue back. However, I understood that arguing would only lead to them bombarding me with heartless words and ultimately leaving me feeling even more downcast. "I'm sorry." All I could do was quietly apologize. Usually, their attitudes were intolerable, but they worsened further when alcohol was involved. "Eliza, how on earth have you managed to live up to now? You lack so much common sense. It's a wonder how you've come this far." "Do you really think so too, Mom?" "I've been thinking the same. Really. Why did I even marry someone like this? It's the worst, isn't it?" They continued to relentlessly speak ill of me, fully aware that I was in the same room. Why did I marry such a person? It's truly the worst. There must have been more decent people out there. Fed up with their repeated words, I eventually found myself able to let their comments pass without affecting me as much. I've considered divorce many times but have been unable to make a decision. Will I continue to be at their mercy forever? While being crushed by a sense of despair, I just continued living. However, one day my mother-in-law committed an unforgivable act, and it fundamentally changed my thinking. This situation completely altered my view of Erin and my mother-in-law. Half a year after we began living together, unbelievably, it came to light that my mother-in-law had been withdrawing money from our joint savings. Feeling that I could not overlook this, I confronted her in front of Aaron directly. Why are you using our money without permission? I'm supposed to be managing the cash card and the bank book, so how did you find their hiding place? Oh, you're worried about that. It's nothing. We live together, so it's only natural, right? Natural for what reason? Did you tell her everything, Aaron? Even the passwords? Yes. Well, I did, but so what? Aaron admitted it nonchalantly, laughing. Why? You don't know what will happen next, do you? What did Mom use it for? She replaced the TV and DVD player in the living room with new ones and bought some new clothes. But it was only about $5,000, so it's not something to get so upset about, right? Are you saying it's okay because it's only $5,000? Do you know how hard it is to save up $5,000? That's an exaggeration. Aaron and his mother laughed off my complaints. Their attitude only made my anger grow. It's not an exaggeration. What are you talking about? Most of that savings came from money I worked hard to earn. It may be legally considered marital property, but then Mom has the right to use it. Not at all. It would have been better if she had at least consulted me. But to proceed without saying a word. How can you both be so calm about it, thinking it's okay not to tell me anything? Does Mom realize she's acting like a thief? Thief? As soon as that word came out, his mother started pretending to be hurt and began to cry, calling me a thief. How terrible. Hey, what are you doing making Mom cry? Calling her a thief? That's a terrible thing to say. Mom is lonely because Dad passed away. Yet, why would you say such a thing? So because she's lonely and sad, everything is excusable. It can't be helped. I couldn't help but sigh at that selfish reasoning. Regardless of the reason, criminal acts are not excusable. If the same thing were done to you by my parents, would you accept it? You wouldn't, right? That's a different story. It's the exact same thing. Don't talk nonsense. Calm down. Despite the situation worsening because of his mother, it often seemed like I was the only one overreacting, and I was seething with anger inside. Hey, this is happening because of you, mother-in-law. Why are you acting like it's none of your business? And it's $5,000. Please return it soon. If it's just $5,000, you can pay it back, right? I don't have a job, so. Sell the TV and clothes then. You admitted earlier that's what you spent it on, right? Aaron, you said you gave her the PIN, right? It's too late to claim it's none of your business now. My mother-in-law looked displeased, but it seemed like my message had finally gotten through. All right, I'll pay it back eventually. Eventually. Isn't that better than not paying it back at all? Look, give me a month. I hadn't expected my mother-in-law to make a concrete proposal about when she would pay after asking for the refund. Please make sure to pay it back in 1 month. Don't forget. All right, Aaron, you hear that too? Yes. At that moment, I decided to trust my mother-in-law. After all, such straightforwardness from her was rare. But that night, I regretted trusting her even a little. Isn't it scary how she demands the money back? It's truly unpleasant. For just $5,000? Can you believe how narrow-minded she is? We're letting her live with us. She should be more generous. That night, Aaron and his mother drank more than usual, and their criticisms of me intensified. As always, despite my presence there. Really, I don't want to live with someone like Eliza anymore. Maybe we should get divorced? Then she'll be a stranger and we wouldn't have to pay her back, right? It was the first time Aaron mentioned divorce, and it stirred up turmoil within me. Even though I had considered divorce, hearing it said aloud made me feel complex emotions. Following that, his mother continued the conversation. That might be a good idea. I never wanted a daughter-in-law like Eliza anyway. Why don't we take this opportunity to get a divorce? I agree. In just a moment, the conversation between the two made me feel that this might be the perfect time to separate from Aaron. Are you really considering a divorce? Yes, I am. I heard that clearly. Is that a threat?" They exchanged mocking words again. I turned away from their words and went to fetch something. A week later, Aaron and his mother left the house in the afternoon without any explanation to me. Where they were going was none of my business. While hearing their cheerful voices, I was checking social media. About an hour later, I received an unexpected call from my sister-in-law, Carla. I was wary because Carla, who usually doesn't contact me much, was calling, and I wondered if something was wrong. "Hello, is that Carla?" Surprisingly, Carla's voice was very cheerful. "Hello, Eliza. How are you doing?" "Yes, I'm fine." "That's good." From the background of the call, I could faintly hear the bustle of a distant crowd. As I wondered where she was and what she was doing, Carla's location and the events taking place there became clear. "Eliza, aren't you coming here?" "Eh?" "Coming there." "Eh? Right now Aaron and your mother are inviting relatives, and they're having a big party." "A party, you say?" Just as I thought, something was happening, but Aaron and his mother hadn't explained anything to me. I immediately asked Carla where the party was being held. "Where is it being held?" "Oh, it's at the steakhouse right near the station." "That's where we're having it. At that fancy place." While I was puzzled by the sudden high-end venue for the party, I was also concerned that there wasn't any major event involving the relatives that I was aware of. "But aren't you coming, Eliza? I thought I'd invite you." "Right now, about 25 people have gathered and are having a great time." "Understood. Thank you. I'll get ready and head over." "Okay, we'll be waiting for you." I ended the call maintaining my composure and immediately left for the steakhouse. Upon arriving and entering the restaurant, just as Carla had said, the relatives were there. I was confused about why Aaron and his mother had suddenly called the relatives and couldn't grasp their intentions. "Oh, Eliza, what's going on here?" As I stood there in shock, his mother, with a flushed face, approached me and spoke. When I asked about the real intention behind her actions, she said excitedly, "I thought I'd treat everyone to high-end steaks. I'll use this black card." Then she confidently pulled out my credit card. I momentarily found it hard to breathe. But she continued, "This is all on Eliza's money, so it's all free." However, I quickly remembered the current status of the card she was holding and my own situation, and spoke up. That card is expired, you know. Actually, I filed for divorce last week and am now single." What?" At those words, the surroundings went quiet. Immediately, she reacted. "What? You were divorced," she exclaimed loudly. It seemed as if she had sobered up. Next to her, Aaron, who was usually loud in presenting problems to me, had also sobered up and looked pale. "Indeed, the divorce is finalized." "Oh, Aaron, you say you don't remember signing the divorce papers? You wanted to split up so badly. There's no way you could have forgotten, right?" I can't remember anything." "I forgot. So maybe the divorce is invalid? Did I really sign the divorce papers? You must have signed them yourself and submitted them." I had anticipated his excuse of forgetting. "I thought you might say that. However, signing the divorce papers on someone else's behalf is illegal." "I have not done such a thing." Then that means you committed a crime. I don't remember it. Do you have proof that I signed the divorce papers?" "Yes, I do." Aaron was visibly shocked. His mother had the same expression of surprise next to him. "Just in case, I recorded the scene where you signed the divorce papers. I thought there might be a chance you would claim to have forgotten." I explained and then played a video on my phone. The video showed Aaron signing the divorce papers and declaring that this act would sever our relationship. In the video, his mother was also seen laughing, repeatedly saying, "I'm so glad you're divorcing Eliza. Do you think you can argue against this?" The divorce papers were submitted the next day, and we are now unrelated. There's also footage of you signing the papers, so denying it is futile. If there's any doubt about the divorce, why not check the family registry? It wouldn't be surprising if it's already been updated. That was me. This video must be a fake. Such a thing is impossible. Are you still going to say that? It's clear that you've disliked me from the start. Since we started living together, your behavior has worsened. At first, I thought it was because you were grieving the loss of your father, but I can't handle it anymore. While Aaron seemed resigned, his mother was still trying to make excuses. Aaron appeared to understand the situation, but his mother was in denial. Wait a minute. Do you have proof? Do you have evidence that we said those things? No, there is no evidence. Look, if there's no evidence, then it's a fabrication by you. However, considering the interactions we've had so far, who do you think people will support? You've always been overbearing, saying my daughter-in-law's money is my own, and it's become clear in this conversation that you stole my card. What do you think about that? I turned to the relatives who had been ignoring the situation until now. They had stopped eating and were focused on our conversation. However, most of their gazes were concentrated on Aaron and his mother, with many showing expressions of suspicion. Don't look at me like that. How long will you keep this childish behavior? It's embarrassing. If that's true, why have you stayed in the house all this time? Actually, I was planning to leave immediately. However, since you seem to have forgotten about the divorce, I thought it wouldn't hurt to wait a little longer before moving out. The day after signing the divorce papers, Aaron and his mother continued to throw harsh words at me from the morning and kept ordering me to do various chores. As there was no indication that they wanted me to leave, I decided there was no rush to move out until I found a room I wanted. Of course, if they had told me to leave, I would have complied immediately. By the way, I've completed the lease agreement for a room, so I plan to move out when I return home today. The move-in date has already been arranged. Do you really intend to do that? You've been complaining about me for so long, but is it that bad for you that I'm leaving your house? You're really selfish. To think this was your hidden true nature. I was preparing to leave until I received a call today. I'll be done soon, and I thought today was the right time to move. Aaron and his mother started to panic as they learned about my departure. Clearly, they would be troubled by my absence. Without me, who had been handling the household chores and serving as a means for them to relieve stress, they would struggle. Putting aside the housework, I'm not here just to help them alleviate stress. Are you satisfied with the resolution of the divorce matter now? No, not yet. Just to be clear, I have no intention of coming back. No matter how much we continue this conversation, it's just repeating the same things over and over. Aaron listened silently to my words. So can we end the discussion about the divorce here? Next, let's talk about the card, Mother. At that, his mother's face changed. Did you enter my room while I was away? That card was in my room. That is. Your slow response is as good as an admission, isn't it? You rummaged through my room while I was at work, and you didn't just stop at stealing money. To describe it as stealing money is. How much explanation is needed for them to understand? I continued to explain. I've said it multiple times, but the fact remains that you stole from me, right? You also took the credit card. If you were so confident about treating everyone using that card, shouldn't you have checked its expiration date? There's no way I could have gotten the expiration date wrong. Do you remember what month it is today? It's October. The card you have expired in September. I manage all usable cards, and the only card you could have taken was an expired one. I always replace my cards as soon as the new ones arrive, and I was about to dispose of the old one. His mother looked at the card, her face trembling. But I checked. She repeated that she had checked. However, the fact that the card was already expired remains unchanged. Are you sure you checked? Stop making a fool of my mother. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. It's just that I found it a bit amusing. So you are mocking me. There's another point that I find strange, something that only I seem to have noticed. By the way, I've been meaning to ask. But that's not a black card, is it? In fact, the card his mother had was not a black card. Normally, Black cards are owned only by very wealthy people. There's no way I would have such a card. It's not. But it's black. His mother suddenly became flustered and raised her voice. I saw an advertisement for a similar card before. It mentioned black something. I've seen Eliza using it, so it must be right. There have been advertisements for black cards before, but it only looks similar. I remember that advertisement too. The design is similar, but it's a different card. But there's no way I could have a black card. I'm just a regular employee. You should understand why if you think about it. While it might be possible for an ordinary employee to have a black card, in my case, it's different. I wish they would know better. This is nothing but the result of succumbing to temptation. Fortunately, it was an expired card that was stolen, and it's frightening to think that my mother-in-law could have taken and used a credit card that is still valid. So how do you intend to handle this payment? By then, she had believed she was using an expired black card for payment. Hey, Aaron, what are you going to do now? This was planned by the two of you, right? You're responsible too. When I turned the issue to Aaron, he was so shocked that he trembled. Mom, what should we do? The fact was, the two of them had no savings. As I quietly observed their reactions, his mother hesitantly suggested, "Let's split the bill. Everyone has ordered various things." Yes, that's a good idea. If we split it, no one loses out. It's rare to encounter such a selfish proposal. But, wait, split the bill? You invited us saying you were treating us, so you should pay. Naturally, her suggestion was not accepted. Triggered by one relative speaking up, others also began to voice their dissatisfaction. What should we do? Actually, we don't have any money. Under the pressure of the relatives' stern voices, Aaron and his mother seemed to start strategizing. At that moment, Carla, who had been silent until now, began to speak. "I will cover the cost." Carla's expression conveyed her anger. This was something my own family did, and it seems we've caused quite a nuisance to Eliza. "Carla, thank you." Her mother breathed a sigh of relief and approached Carla. However, Carla stepped back, maintaining some distance. "Don't get carried away. I'm only fronting the money because otherwise it would cause trouble for the restaurant. This is not payment, it's just covering the cost. It would be embarrassing if we made a scene about not being able to pay. So, please sign this." Carla took out a pen and paper from her bag and wrote "I-O-U" prominently. Come on, what's this? An IOU seems a bit much, doesn't it? People who are not likely to repay need at least this much. According to what Eliza told me, you steal money and don't return it, right? It seems you have no intention of paying it back. We plan to repay it within a month. You're joking. If you really intended to repay, you wouldn't misuse Eliza's card in the first place, would you? It's clear that your words don't match your actions. As Carla was opposed to her mother's words, she began to write the IOU. She then took out another piece of paper from her bag and again wrote IOU on it. "Eliza, let's make sure everything is written down properly and get them to agree to pay back the money. Since you're planning to leave today, we should make sure all precautions are in place before they can escape. Thank you, truly." Thinking back, I realized that when I first noticed the misuse of the savings, I should have immediately prepared an IOU and obtained a signature. Although I had almost given up on recovering the $5,000 after the divorce was finalized, Carla's suggestion had enlightened me. Afterwards, Carla prepared the IOU for my sake as well, handing 2 pieces of paper and pens to Aaron and his mother. The IOU clearly stated the repayment amount and the deadline of 1 month. Neither of them seemed pleased, but perhaps feeling that there was no other way out of the situation, his mother reluctantly took the pen. Just a moment. But at that instant, Carla stopped her mother's hand. Looking around, Carla pulled out her smartphone and started recording Aaron and his mother. I want to avoid any claims of not remembering this later, just like with the divorce papers. We have witnesses here since the relatives are gathered, but having a video will ensure there's no problem. It felt very reasonable to me. We don't need a video. You two have caused enough problems already. Now, please sign. With no choice left, his mother accepted the inevitable and signed the IOU with trembling hands. All right, both are now signed. I'll stop the recording. Carla turned off the camera and began speaking with a sense of resolve. I've decided to cut off my involvement with both Aaron and our mother. But only after the full repayment of the money. While I can't erase the blood ties and fully cut off relations, I will no longer contact you two after this. You've treated Eliza terribly and acted as if nothing was wrong. I see no reason for Eliza to lie, and there's no benefit for her in doing so. Carla stated quietly. To think that someone connected to them by blood would believe in me over her own family. But there's no concrete evidence that I've done anything terrible, is there? Carla's comment might have been casual, but it struck a deep chord with her mother, seemingly a significant blow. She probably never expected to hear such words from her own child. Aaron, too, seemed to have sensed something, as he silently bowed his head. Please make sure to repay the full amount within the deadline. If you don't have the money, borrow it. If you try to escape, we will take legal action. Yes, understood. You will properly repay Eliza too, right? To this query, Aaron and his mother quietly nodded. I'll support you through a lawyer I know if there are any issues, Eliza. Thank you very much, Carla. The usual liveliness seemed to have vanished. Aaron and his mother remained silent, heads down. They both seemed smaller than usual. Afterwards, I expressed my gratitude to the relatives and Carla, then immediately returned home. I packed my belongings and moved to a suitable hotel. I arranged with the real estate agent to move into my new place as soon as possible, deciding to stay at the hotel in the meantime. That night, I received an email from Carla, who was concerned about me. Despite the lack of much interaction before, I was moved to tears by her thoughtfulness. A week later, Aaron contacted me. He wanted to invite me home to repay the debt, but I preferred to avoid a meeting with all three of us and asked to change the location to a family restaurant. Initially reluctant, he eventually accepted my request, and I felt relieved. Please check this. Upon arriving at the family restaurant, Aaron handed me an envelope filled with a significant amount of money. His mother also apologized. I'm truly sorry. I'm sorry, Eliza. For my selfish behavior and for taking the money. I wasn't surprised by their apologies. Given the events of the past few days, I had anticipated they might apologize. I had also predicted what they might say next. Can we perhaps start over? It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. I thought you might say that. But we are truly sorry. What do you think? What do I think? True remorse is shown through actions, not just words. It seems you haven't understood anything. With my firm declaration, Aaron appeared restless, and his mother looked down. Now that the money has been repaid, I will be leaving. Wait. There's still more to talk about. There's nothing more to discuss. By the way, I will inform Carla about this. As soon as I mentioned Carla's name, they quieted down. They were probably afraid of what other relatives might say. I left them there and immediately returned home. Thanks to the moved-up move-in date, I was already enjoying life alone in my new apartment. While relaxing in the living room, I contacted Carla. Carla, I've just met with Aaron and his mother, and I've finally received the money. Really? That's great. It looks like everything has been resolved smoothly. Carla spoke with a relieved tone. Without Carla's support, the situation might not have gone as smoothly. It's likely that I wouldn't have gotten my money back either. We exchanged words of gratitude. Even after the resolution of the incident, my friendship with Carla continued. We began spending more time together, becoming as close as best friends. Carla told me. I heard from relatives that Aaron and Mom are going around borrowing money from relatives to pay off their debts, Despite Carla's declaration to sever ties with Aaron and her mother, she still keeps informed about their situation through relatives. It appears their relationship has deteriorated significantly since the incident. I wondered why they continued to live together despite such a strained relationship, but I realized it must be for economic reasons. A year has since passed. I continue to enjoy a peaceful life on my own, unchanged from before. My relationship with Carla remains strong, and I haven't heard any new stories about Aaron and his mother. It's certain they are still living together. Should any problems arise, I'm sure the relatives will contact me immediately. It seems they are living quietly. Oh, by the way, about the upcoming holiday. Carla proposed for us to go on a trip together soon. The bitter experiences we shared have deepened our friendship. While I can't forgive them, gaining a valuable friend like Carla makes me genuinely happy. I hope these days last forever. With that hope, I continue to live positively each day. Really? Then, which would you prefer, divorce or caregiving? The one who presented me with this extreme choice was my husband, in the 15th year of our marriage. For many years, he has despised and exploited me. At 43 years old, with dim prospects for remarriage, he probably doesn't expect me to choose divorce. He is forcing this cruel choice upon me, fully aware of that fact. I sighed quietly so that my husband couldn't hear. Any affection I once had for my husband had already vanished from my heart. And he still doesn't know the fact that I would not be troubled by anything even if we divorced. While watching my husband's unpleasant smirk, I took a deep breath. Then, to release the long-accumulated resentment, I stared back at him intently. My name is Joyce Hill. I turned 43 this spring. My marriage to Solomon began from a romance, and 15 years have passed. Our meeting started when Solomon approached me at the bar I frequented. This bar is so hidden, I didn't expect to find someone as young and charming as you here. Would you like to drink together? Initially, I saw him as a frivolous person, but as we talked more, I began to see his charm. Solomon listened to me attentively and always laughed joyfully. I was drawn to his smile, and eventually, we started dating. 2 years later, we decided to get married. Is it true that he has debts? You should avoid marrying such a person. Most of the hardships will fall on you. It's not just about the debt, but I feel like he's hiding something. I can't entrust my precious daughter to someone like that. After I introduced Solomon to my parents, they expressed their opposition to our marriage. Solomon had lost his father when he was young and struggled financially during his college days. He explained that he had incurred debts to cover tuition and living expenses, but my parents were skeptical of his story. Could he be falsifying something? Enough. Even if you both don't approve, I'm going to marry Solomon. I married Solomon despite my parents' objections. As a result, this issue caused my relationship with my parents to become distant. More precisely, I was the one who distanced myself from them. 15 years have passed since I married Solomon. I am now 43 years old, but we have never had children. Solomon treats me not as a wife, but as someone who does household chores. Initially, we were a loving couple. We'll have kids someday. We used to say as we both led busy lives. However, just a year after our marriage, the company I was working for went bankrupt. At that time, Zelda, my mother-in-law, who was living separately, made this suggestion while I was busy looking for a new job. Why don't you just stay at home? That way you'll have kids in no time. Show me my grandchildren soon. 6 months into our marriage, my mother-in-law had already started pressing us for children. She saw the bankruptcy of my company as a perfect opportunity for me to stop job hunting. Honestly, it's difficult to make ends meet on Solomon's income alone. He is still paying off his college debts, and the living expenses he can provide me are limited. Ignoring Zelda's words, I managed to find a new job, but this seemed to have backfired. After that, my mother-in-law started throwing harsh words at me. I want to see my grandchildren soon, but Joyce doesn't understand my wishes at all. Oh, I should have opposed the marriage. Solomon could have found someone much better suited for him. She calmly stated these words in front of me, and her sarcasm became even more severe. What a useless daughter-in-law. Can't you even do this? I'm sorry. Every weekend, my mother-in-law calls me over to handle a massive amount of household chores. Shopping, cleaning, cooking, laundry, the domestic tasks are all left to me. I comply with her demands to help her, but she never thanks me. Instead, she only complains about my household skills. When you cook, the food tastes awful. Even store-bought dishes would be better, she says. When I buy prepared dishes, she complains. That's cutting corners or the flavor is too strong. However, I can't complain directly to Solomon's mother, so I just keep enduring it. Worse, Solomon has gradually come under his mother's influence and has started looking down on me. It can't be helped that your career was reset by changing jobs, but with such a low salary, it's impossible to make a living, right? You understand that, don't you? I can't afford to support you alone, so I want you to earn at least $30,000 a year. That's the standard. Since it was right after I changed jobs, my income was very low. Solomon was dissatisfied with this and demanded that I earn more, and in addition, he pressed me to perfectly handle the household chores and deal with my mother-in-law. After returning home, he does no housework at all, and on weekends he goes out and has fun. Solomon gives me only a few $100s for living expenses, and he spends the rest on his hobbies and pleasures. The debts he had from his student days were, at some point, fully paid off. It later became clear that these debts were due to a gambling addiction, and his story of being a struggling student was a lie. After we got married, by me paying most of the living expenses, he managed to gain financial leeway and pay off his debts. However, even after repaying his debts, the amount of living expenses he provided me remained small. In this situation, I continued to live frugally, but Solomon blamed me, saying, "We're living like this because you don't earn more." Due to this stressful lifestyle, one day, I suddenly collapsed at work. The doctor diagnosed it as being due to overwork. When Solomon and his mother visited the hospital, they were angry that I collapsed from overwork. You're too weak to collapse from something like this. Can you really live like this? They criticized me. What Solomon is saying is right. Really, it's pathetic to collapse from overwork. What if people think we're pushing you too hard? It would be embarrassing for us, she added. Despite their lack of concern for me, I had no energy left to argue with them as my fatigue had accumulated. Gradually, their harsh treatment became a routine part of my days. The reason I endure the harsh treatment from Solomon and his mother is because I decided to marry him, ignoring my parents' objections. I've been pushing myself because I took a strong stance against my parents, and I can't just give up because of a few difficulties. While enduring this, I suddenly realized that 15 years had passed since my marriage. During this time, Solomon and his mother's treatment of me has never improved. I've always been treated like their servant. I no longer have the energy to fight back. However, recently her health has worsened, and I've been called more frequently to take care of her. Mother-in-law, you should go to the hospital. I've been doing the household chores at her house every week. But about a month ago, I noticed that her complexion was bad. Today she looked particularly unwell, giving out orders in a harsh tone while sitting in her chair. Having been treated like a servant for years, I'm used to it, but I can't overlook someone who looks sick right in front of me. Still, she seems to dislike my concern. Stop playing doctor. I'll decide about my own health. But, quiet. While shouting, she threw a cup from the table in my direction. However, lacking strength, the cup didn't reach me and fell at her feet instead. What are you doing? Pick up that cup and clean it up. Seemingly wanting to get away from me quickly, she staggered up from her chair and went into the next room. I silently wiped up the contents of the cup that had fallen to the floor. Well, she's so energetic, she must be fine. I had been discussing her health with Solomon, but he showed little interest. Taking care of my mother is your job, isn't it? There's not much I can do if you tell me about it. Normally I say nothing, but this time I wanted to retort. But she's your mother, isn't she? But retorting wouldn't change the situation. If anything, it would just lead to Solomon complaining more. Lately, Solomon's return home has been getting later. I haven't had the chance to discuss her condition, and the days just pass by. And then one day, everything changed. What? My mother-in-law was rushed to the emergency room. I received a call from the hospital while I was at the office. They tried calling Solomon, but he didn't answer, so the call eventually came to me. I hurriedly wrapped up my work and headed to the hospital. She had collapsed while shopping at a local deli. According to the doctor, although her life was not in danger, she would need support for daily activities after being discharged. Can it be? Until now, she had lived separately from us, and that distance was what made my difficult life somewhat bearable. But if we were to live together, I had not been disturbed by her harassment over the past 15 years, but now I was filled with anxiety. If I were to live with her, would I be able to maintain my mental health? After hearing the situation at the hospital, I left her in the doctor's care and returned home. Solomon hadn't come to the hospital, he was waiting at home. When I explained what had happened, he became angry. Why didn't you take her to the hospital sooner? It's your fault that my mother ended up in this condition. I had repeatedly urged her to go to the hospital, but she wouldn't listen to me. I had consulted Solomon about it, but he found it too bothersome and did nothing. Really, is this my fault? As I silently pondered, Solomon sighed heavily. Then, he made an unbelievable suggestion. Now that things have come to this, there's no choice but to have my mother live here. We'll sell her house and land. Of course, you will take on the caregiving. Using caregiving services would be too expensive, so I'm leaving all of her care to you. What? But then I won't be able to continue working. What are you talking about? It's only natural that you continue with your job and the housework as before. Saying that you can't do your job or housework because of caregiving is just an excuse. Faced with Solomon's unreasonable remarks, I was simply stunned. Does he really think I can handle caregiving, work, and household chores all by myself? It's impossible. At these words that slipped out unexpectedly, Solomon reacted, If we're going to take care of your mother here, we must share the responsibilities of household and caregiving. It's impossible for me to do everything alone. Solomon looked surprised at my rebuttal. Having spent the past 15 years mostly without defiance, not only he but also I was surprised by my own reaction. However, those spontaneous words highlighted how unrealistic his demands were. Solomon frowned and retorted, "Is that so? Then, which would you prefer, divorce or caregiving?" Choose either. I don't care. While saying this, Solomon gave an unpleasant smirk, imposing a tremendous choice on me. You're not on good terms with your parents, and if we divorce, who will you rely on? It'll be difficult for a woman alone to live decently. With such a low salary, if you leave me, that's the end. Without me, could you even survive? Thus, Solomon confidently indicated that divorce was not an option for me. Witnessing him looking down on me with such arrogance, it felt like something inside me broke. All right then, I choose divorce. I'm moving out today. Why don't you ask your 23-year-old lover to take care of her? What? Surprised by my unexpected response, Solomon let out a jesting tone I had never heard before. His voice sounded so pitiful that I almost laughed, but I thought better of it, as laughing would not help the situation progress. Holding back my laughter, I pulled out something I had been hiding in my bag for a long time. Here, take this. While puzzled, Solomon took the bulging brown envelope I offered him. As he checked the contents of the envelope, his face gradually turned pale. What is this? As Solomon's voice trembled, I answered calmly, It's evidence of your affair with your 23-year-old lover. The envelope contained numerous photographs. In the photos, Solomon was seen intimately linking arms with a young woman. Solomon's return home had started to get later 6 months ago. At that time, I began to suspect his dishonest actions, but I had yet to obtain concrete evidence. However, his consistently cheerful demeanor when he came home every day intuitively told me something was off. So I hired a detective and discovered that he was indeed having an affair. His affair partner was a 23-year-old stripper. He first visited the cabaret club as part of a business association. Solomon, inherently frivolous, had dated several women before our marriage, but it seemed that these women issues had resolved after he shifted his interests elsewhere post-marriage. However, one day, invited to a strip club by a business contact, he met a woman who perfectly matched his ideals and fell for her instantly. Since then, he has been pouring his salary into that strip club, eventually forming an intimate relationship with the stripper. Your affair partner? She's cute and young, but do you think she can take care of your mother? Your mother likes to give orders, and she will be even more demanding after she's discharged. Pointing to the woman in the photos, I confronted Solomon. No, this is a misunderstanding. It was just a bit of fun, not an affair. He stammered, his previous confidence vanished, and he began to offer a feeble excuse. Oh, just a bit of fun, huh? Yes, that's right. I didn't intend to do anything serious. Cutting off his excuses, I sighed heavily and stopped the conversation. Then, I pulled out my smartphone and played an audio file. I'll divorce my wife soon, and then I'll marry you right after. I'll protect you for the rest of your life. Hearing Solomon's sweet voice from the smartphone, I grimaced with discomfort. Meanwhile, Solomon, pale-faced, stared at me, demanding to know why I had such a thing. This is just a part of the evidence collected by the detective agency. There are loads of your call records with her. And whether or not you were serious doesn't matter. Having an affair with someone else while married to me is clearly infidelity. While saying that, I selected a photo from the stack of evidence and showed it to Solomon. In the photo, they were captured entering a hotel, arms linked intimately. Do you want to see more? I can show you plenty of other evidence. Are you still planning to make excuses? Solomon shuddered at my challenging question. He probably realized that he could no longer talk his way out of this. Changing tactics, he began to accuse me. Hey, did you use my money to hire a detective? Using my hard-earned money for such wasteful spending? Give me back my money." Caught off guard by this unexpected attack, I was momentarily at a loss for words. Solomon seized this opportunity to further his verbal assault. "Do you know how much it costs to hire a detective? Using my money for such a ridiculous investigation. You're the worst wife. Well, if you return the money with interest, I might forgive you this time." Seeing Solomon twist the situation for his own benefit, I was utterly astounded and asked, "When did you become so petty?" Struggling to maintain my composure, I calmly retorted to Solomon, "I used my own savings for the detective. I haven't touched your money at all, so no worries there." "That can't be true. There's no way you have that much money to hire a detective. Or, did you not know that I was recently promoted to department manager? I'm earning quite a sum now." Solomon was visibly shocked by this unexpected revelation. After graduating from college, the company where I had worked for a long time went bankrupt due to the economic downturn. In my next job, I started from scratch as a basic sales clerk, despite leveraging my experience. I was initially placed in a sales administration role, but there was a system in place that promised additional bonuses for success, not just a base salary. Content at first with the administrative position, I faced Solomon's complaints of earn more and directly requested my boss for a transfer to sales. The sales role was challenging, but I embraced the challenge and became the first person to transition from an administrative to a sales role at the company. At the time, the company was seriously short-staffed in sales, and help was desperately needed. After handing over the sales admin tasks to a newly joined female employee, I started focusing entirely on sales. The sales job was indeed tough, but it turned out to be surprisingly suitable for me. I achieved results that matched those of my male colleagues and gradually earned recognition, leading to multiple promotions. Now, I hold the position of department manager. While many women interrupt their careers for childbirth and childcare, I was able to continue working because Solomon and I didn't have children. This allowed me to build and advance my career. Had we had children, my career might have been interrupted, and divorcing Solomon could have been more complicated. "Why didn't you tell me something so important?" "I tried to tell you. But whenever I tried to talk, you hardly listened, did you?" When I decided to transition from sales administration to a sales position, I attempted to share this with Solomon. However, he said, "Work talk? Spare me. I don't want to hear about it when I come home. I'm tired." And with that, he never listened to the end of my story. With each promotion, I tried again to tell Solomon, but he never seemed interested in listening. Despite his constant demands for me to earn more, he showed no real interest in what kind of work I was doing or how much I was actually earning. It was last winter when I saw the amount of the bonus I received from the company, and a thought struck me. If I'm handling such a large amount of money, I could live comfortably on my own. I had never thought that way before, but at that moment, it just came to me naturally. Perhaps I had been harboring some dissatisfaction with my situation for a long time. I had married Solomon despite strong opposition from my parents, telling myself that I must overcome any difficulties to stay with him. However, even with such determination, there are limits to what one can endure. After 15 years of marriage, I finally reached that limit. Following this realization, I decided to divorce and hired a detective for that purpose. While I had suspected Solomon's dishonest behavior, I had not yet taken any concrete steps. Until now, I had not considered divorce as an option, convincing myself that I should stay with Solomon no matter how hard it was. However, the moment I decided to divorce, I took action, I finally obtained proof of the affair, and now I am confronting Solomon. Solomon has not treated me as an equal. To him, I was merely a convenient tool, routinely belittled and treated like a servant. Before our marriage, he was kind and listened to me. However, at some point, he changed into this cold person. Perhaps I just hadn't noticed before, but maybe Solomon was always like this. Who would want to stay with such a person? Normally, it's impossible. That's why I chose divorce. I definitely do not want to take care of a mother-in-law who has never valued me from the start. Even if offered money, I would refuse. After her collapse, my mother-in-law's body became frail, but her mind remained sharp. If I were to care for her at home after her discharge, it's certain she would treat me more like a servant than before. I would consider caregiving if she respected and appreciated me, but expecting such an attitude from her is unrealistic. When Solomon confidently forced me to choose between caregiving and divorce, my mind was already made up. I should tell you, I earn more than you do. What? Despite your lack of substantial contributions to our living expenses, the fact you never questioned our lifestyle shows how oblivious you are. The reason you could eat every day is because I was earning. It seems you still don't understand, but you're the one who would be in trouble if we divorced. Solomon, who has always looked down on me, is clearly upset to learn that I earn more. His face turns red, his lips press tightly together, and he trembles with anger as he glares at me. As I watch him in disbelief, he blurts out something unexpected. Fine, I get it. I want a divorce from such an arrogant woman like you. In exchange, give me half of your savings. There's such a thing as division of property. His foolishness makes me look up to the sky in frustration. But I quickly return my gaze to him and deliver a further blow with a cold voice. If you're going to claim division of property, you'll need to speak to my lawyer. What? A lawyer? Are you surprised? I've already contracted a lawyer to handle the division of assets. If Solomon had said he would take care of his mother's caregiving himself, I would have reconsidered the divorce and put the lawyer on hold. Originally, I had intended to overlook Solomon's infidelity and get through this tough period together. I hadn't expected him to make such a proposal, but it ended up this way. Solomon clearly became flustered the moment he heard the word lawyer. A lawyer, is that? Isn't this something we can handle ourselves? There's no need to go that far. You've never listened to me properly and have ignored me all along. That's why I think it's impossible for us to resolve this alone. Moreover, I want you to take responsibility for everything that's happened, and involving a professional is the best way to ensure that. Solomon looked around anxiously with a pale face. Did you really think you did nothing wrong? At that, Solomon's face contorted even more. He had demeaned and treated me like a servant, but he seemingly never anticipated being retaliated against in such a manner. His selfish actions made me regret marrying him and resent my own choices. Then, I'll start packing. You figure out the rest. As I said this and began to leave, Solomon suddenly reached out and grabbed the hem of my clothes. Wait. Let go. I don't have any money. I frowned at Solomon's sudden confession. I got obsessed with the stripper and bought her lots of designer goods to get her attention. Because of that, my savings are almost gone. That's why I don't have any money to give you. Recently, I've even been borrowing a bit from my mother's pension. Unbelievable. You've been using your own mother's pension. This was the first I'd heard of it, but it seemed like something Solomon would do. A thought suddenly struck me. You never talked about living together before, but as soon as your mother got sick, You suggested it. Not really for her sake, but for your own benefit, right? Are you trying to sell her house and land to get the money?" At my words, Solomon awkwardly diverted his gaze. The nausea stirred within me, knowing my husband could act so calculatingly. "You're truly despicable. To do such things for your own gain. I've been treated horribly by your mother, but I do feel sorry for her having such a son. However, while I might feel a hint of sympathy, I'm not about to forgive all her past actions." I shook off Solomon's hand and declared coldly, "It doesn't matter that your savings are depleted. If necessary, I'll have your wages garnished to cover the costs. I have a divorce lawyer who's experienced in these matters." "Wait, please reconsider. I'm begging you. It's impossible." No matter how firmly I refused, Solomon showed no signs of giving up easily. He knelt down as if atoning for a grave sin, desperately begging for forgiveness. "I'm truly sorry. From now on, I'll change and start over. I'll help with my mother's care, of course, and I'll actively assist with the household chores. And I'll never cheat again. If you divorce me, my life has no future," he pleaded. It seemed he finally understood that his daily life couldn't function without me. But it was too late. "How can I believe your words now after years of betrayal? You are incredibly naive and detached from reality. I am determined to go through with this divorce by any means necessary," I stated resolutely. "No way," Solomon exclaimed in shock. "What you are about to face is the natural consequence of your continuous disregard for me. Just quietly accept it. Be prepared," I told him. A look of complete despair crossed Solomon's face, and he collapsed weakly to the floor. Following that, we formally proceeded with the divorce and successfully settled the division of assets with the help of a lawyer. Solomon decided to take care of his mother and sold the house and land she owned. He then used the proceeds from the sale to pay the alimony. After the divorce, Solomon, now left only with the stripper he had been involved with, proposed marriage to her. "My wife has left me, and I've lost everything. You're all I have left. Help me, marry me, and take care of my mother." However, the stripper firmly rejected his proposal. She was only using Solomon's emotions for her business, confused by genuine affection, and sternly rejected him, insisting he never come to the club again. When Solomon proposed marriage to the young stripper, intending for her to take care of his mother, it was an unbearable request for her. Solomon, once charming, seemed to have lost his ability to understand women over time. 15 years had passed, and the man he once was no longer existed. Ultimately, his relationship with the stripper he met at the strip club ended with him being banned from the establishment. All the money and time he had invested there vanished without yielding anything. I did not demand an apology from the stripper. When I found out his affair partner worked at the strip club, I intuitively understood it was part of her professional behavior. I am grateful to her for cooperating to smooth the divorce process. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law was initially pleased to hear about our divorce but found reality far from her expectations after being discharged from the hospital. She suffers under Solomon's inadequate care and repeatedly pleads for my return. "Why did you divorce Joyce? You are the reason I am suffering so much." She lashes out at her son. She seems utterly unaware that she was part of the reason for our divorce. If she had been more understanding, she might not have left Solomon alone, and perhaps we would not have divorced. However, my mother-in-law is very self-centered, much like Solomon. Financially unable to afford caregiving services, Solomon finds himself in a dire situation regarding his mother's care. Thinking of this as a long-deserved punishment for their treatment of me, I sometimes feel that this is still relatively mild. Their future seems wrapped in misfortune and darkness. Whatever future awaits them, I find myself detached from any particular feelings about it. It's their just dessert, I think, without much emotion. After the divorce, I visited my parents' home to apologize sincerely for my past actions. I was prepared for potential estrangement, but contrary to my expectations, my parents warmly welcomed me back. "If you are happy, then we are satisfied," my parents told me. "Yes, you are always our beloved daughter. Your happiness is the most important thing to us," my mother added. "Mom, Dad, thank you so much." I expressed my deep gratitude. In fact, my parents had forgiven me from the beginning, and I am just grateful for their tolerance. Currently, I have rented a new apartment near my parents' home and have started a new chapter. Although my job remains busy as before, not having to worry about Solomon or Zelda has significantly eased my life. In the future, even if I have the opportunity to remarry, I plan to be more cautious when choosing a partner. But for now, I think it might be quite nice to spend some time alone. I am considering enjoying this independent life. I cherish these peaceful days.